Even though, emails and messages may be flying back and forth, you can be sort of the grand master. And while all those things are flying by, you can change your energy, you can change your pace, and slow it down. So I want to spend the rest of the time here talking about these different ways of kind of making ourselves more awake, more aware, more fully present. So something interesting. And by the way, in our sense of awareness, in our awakening, we change the world. I mean, we really, literally change the world. So sometimes it may seem, and certainly I'm not beyond this in any sense. There are times when it can seem that the forces that be just don't get it. But they are. And these changes are happening, and it's important to remember that they're happening. They may not take the form that we immediately understand or immediately like, but they are happening, and they're happening for the right reasons. As disconcerting as it can sometimes seem. Okay, I want to talk about something called the slow food movement. The slow food movement is a way of engaging with the foods that you eat in a more healthy, more productive, and more pleasurable way, so that you can really enjoy the food that you're eating and not just be shoveling food down your throat or eating to eat so you can move on to the next activity. So this movement started in Italy in the 1980s, and it encourages people to slow the pace of life in order to truly savor not only foods and beverages, but the pleasure of eating and the companionship of friends and family sitting around the table. And there's a lot of people who don't, and a lot of families that don't have the time to, or don't take the time to sit around the table together. That's something that I've heard a lot of people complaining about, the fact that in this hectic day and time, they don't see each other. The kids have hectic schedules. They've got schoolwork. They've got activities. Parents are working, late. Often both parents. And so the family dinner often gets shunted aside. But this slow food movement is a way of bringing that back, I guess. I mean, I know when I was growing up, the family almost always every night had dinner together until much later. Like when I was towards the end of high school or what have you, when separately. But for the most part, our family always had dinner together, uh, like it or not. I mean, these weren't always. I just want to say these weren't always the most fun time. Uh, easy. Uh, Perhaps we gained something from them, even when they were uncomfortable. Uh, that stays with us, perhaps. So this slow food movement involves traditional foods that are fresh and made from local ingredients and served during leisurely meals. You know, local ingredients is a big push these days, and you can find lots of farmers markets, particularly around this time of year. Um, and in grocery stores, more and more, they have sections of produce uh, where they let you know that these items were grown on local farms. These uh, some beef and poultry, depending on where you live, locally raised, and people are wanting to have more of that. Sometimes it's expensive, and it depends. I've noticed that in my local supermarkets, there's more of the local produce and not much difference in price, but it sure can be pricey in some cases. Whole Foods is one that has acquired sort of a reputation of what is the joke that they tell? They call it whole paycheck because it costs your whole paycheck to shop there. It can. I mean, you can certainly buy the priciest things in the store, and it would, might break your budget, but you don't have to. You can still have these kinds of things but relatively inexpensively. I know even Whole Foods has their line of foods and organic products that are comparably priced to anything else in any other supermarket, and less than some of the name brands. So you just have to be a smart shopper. So local ingredients and leisurely meals. I mean, I like to cook on the weekends, and that's, for me, a very healthy thing to do. I enjoy doing it, and then enjoying the fruits of my labor, if you will. So, from a health perspective, it's a much healthier approach. Uh, than eating, on the run, powering through your meal so you can get to the next event or what have you. Uh, or, worst case scenario, picking up some of these, prepared meals. Sometimes you don't have a choice. I know. Sometimes our schedules are such that we don't have time to do it. But if you can figure out, you know, sometime in your schedule, I mean, to be realistic, it's probably not going to be every day. Like when I was a kid. Um, but twice a week, 3 times a week, that might be doable. Particularly on the weekends, that might work. So here's a couple of things that you can do uh, to sort of get involved in this slow food movement idea. Uh, as we were talking about, shopping for fresh, local produce and meats, and going to farmers markets. It can be a lot of fun, just roaming through a farmer's market and seeing what they've got. So if you go to restaurants rather than cooking at home, look for places that have local or regional foods. And that's really hard because a lot of places don't, but you can call and ask. And usually they'll be pretty happy to tell you, you know, what kinds of foods they use and what they use. And these are going to tend to be restaurants that are, privately owned, maybe what they call mom and pop shops. Um, they're not going to be, you're not going to go to your Chili's or TGI Fridays or any of the other chain restaurants around and find these things. That's just not going to happen. These are going to be smaller restaurants, as I say, probably individually owned, maybe owned by a chef. There's a great restaurant here in this area that it's a bit bright. So if you can find places like that, it's a good investment. And even if it is pricey, I would say, save your money. Don't spend it, at these smaller. I mean, don't spend it at these chain restaurants. Uh, just rather than go to a chain restaurant, put that money aside. Uh, Maybe eat something, you know, that you cook at home, or maybe a less expensive meal at some of the grocery stores around here now have meals that they make on the premises. Sometimes they can be nutritional and healthy, but so that when you do go out, you can go to some of these restaurants that specialize in local and regional foods, and it can be within your budget. Family traditions, if you have any. Think about the foods that your mom and dad or your grandparents prepared for family gatherings, and try to replicate what you can. Uh, I feel extraordinarily lucky that my mom taught me a lot of her old recipes of the foods that I loved that she made, and she was a tremendous cook. She cooked for her family all the time, and I've been able to take many of those recipes and continue them on for myself. I've changed some over time as new information and new kinds of foods have been made available, or just to try something different. But those recipes and what she taught me really were the foundation of how I cook for myself and the things that I eat. Now, if you're going to maybe a potluck or something, or some sort of gathering, um, try to make a recipe. Try to cook it yourself instead of getting something store-made. And then be ready to share the recipe when people ask. So these are things that you can do to kind of make food a better experience. You know, there are those of us, who call ourselves, they call them now foodies, uh, where they are truly interested in trying out different recipes and different types of restaurants. Um, I think of a foodie as someone who cooks on their own. But the definition of foodies is often the people who go to seek out these different and unique restaurants, and a couple of days a week. And I suppose that's a foodie. You start to appreciate, how different chefs prepare different things. But I feel like, cooking is one of the most therapeutic